Hi, welcome to the Guides Podcast. This is India Lee, intuitive. And in this episode, I'm talking with Landy Peek, who's a therapist. She does somatic therapy, she does coaching, and we delve together into the phenomenon of life suddenly seeming less fulfilling, to say the least, when you get in your 40s. Now, there are lots of reasons for this that we delve into, and understanding these things that are happening around that age is really helpful, whether you're approaching that age bracket, whether you've already passed it, whether you're smack in the middle of it. It is helpful to just understand the pivot that happens in our 40s. So we're going to dive in now with Landy Peek. Enjoy.
When you feel like so much is happening and unfolding, and I want to like keep up with it, but it's like this
Huh?
breathless feeling. And you have to kind of remind yourself to breathe and pace yourself because it's like, okay, all of it is on my path. None of it's going anywhere. It's kind of like when you have a really great meal and you're just like, slow down, let's savor it.
Yes.
That feeling.
I love that feeling.
Yeah. What have you been having that feeling with lately?
Um, Lately I've been tapping into working with women around this happiness dip that happens in our 40s
Mhm.
alongside of perimenopause.
Yeah.
And there's this double whammy that we're not talking about. And it is just incredible. I mean, so much like passion. I can't get enough to read and to learn and to talk about. And it's
That feeling like you're just running to keep up with the spark.
get enough. And it's just,
Yeah.
and it's the same, like remind myself it's not going away
Right.
and pace myself. But it is just, there's like so much. And the more women that I talk to, the more I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to get this out to everyone. And it's just incredible. But it was aha in my life because it's what was a huge part of what was happening. There was some, other shifts going on too last year, but a huge part was happening in like these brain changes and body changes that are going on with being in your 40s and perimenopause, and
Yeah.
nobody's talking about it.
And then that goes hand in hand with astrologically, our
Yeah.
shift from south node to north node happens just around that time as well, which means we're going from one astrological energy to the exact polar opposite, but we are seeking a balance between them. And so we've got that along with the hormones, the the happiness factor, all of it. So I am excited to hear what you've been learning about that and how you've been working with other women and just what you've been discovering. Share, share, share. Let's get it out there.
So I tapped in with you last year and we were talking about the node shift. And so that you were my only guidance in this, like, oh my gosh, it feels like, the floor just went out from under me. I was driven, I had a career, family was good. It was all of this. And then it's like flip or a switch flipped. And that was it. It's like, I have no energy. I have no purpose. I don't want to do what I've been doing. And you were guiding me in that node shift. And then I started doing more research, tapped into perimenopause, which nobody had talked to me about. And it's basically, we all women, humans with uteruses, are going through it as we're shifting. And it's like puberty, but backwards. Where we're going, my daughter calls it unpuberty because I was trying to explain what was going on with me. We're also in that like pre-puberty stage for her. So we're talking about puberty. And she's like, oh my gosh, mom, it's unpuberty. It's like, well, kind of.
Genius. That's brilliant. Yes. Yeah.
It's looking at, we don't have books about it. We don't talk about it. And when we are looking at, and when there is information around, oh my gosh, menopause is going to hit, it's all of the horror stories, but not actually what's going on.
Mhm.
And then I had a huge happiness dump where I was dissatisfied with everything in my life. And so I dove into the research, and our happiness goes on a U curve where we
Mm.
start to slide down in our 30s, hit rock bottom around 44, and then it starts to go back up. And so for women, we're hitting our 50s and feeling like we have our spark again. And so we have this huge shift, and it's really what's happening as our brain is shifting and changing from this very outward, I'm getting things, I'm achieving things, to more of a viewpoint around what's my legacy? How am I giving back? And so our brains are undergoing this shift, our bodies are undergoing a shift, and then we have the nodes. And it's like,
Yeah, and I would add, how am I giving back? And also, how am I receiving? Because that's the part that we as feminines really aren't programmed or taught to do. The receiving the joy, the receiving the, ease, whatever it is.
yeah,
I love what you're saying. We're probably about a decade or so apart. I'm 52, and
uh-huh.
definitely noticing what you're talking about. There was a dip, and it is going back up, or it's going up. Um, the happiness, the ability to self-regulate,
Yes.
is improving. And I will never forget, and I was probably like in my 20s when I heard this, but Oprah years and years ago, when she was on TV every day, talking about how the 50s were um she was like, life starts at 50, and I believe it's what you're talking about, which is this sort of rebirth through the 40s
Yes.
for women into this new time in life.
Hmm.
And it feels like it also comes with an entirely different way of viewing yourself,
Yes.
not as dependent on relationships or
Hmm.
on public perception or on any of that. It's more, internal. And isn't
Hmm.
it interesting? It feels like as time goes by, women move more in this direction of, coming into their own internal authority. And meanwhile, the masculines, men, are moving more into their heart, more into their feminine.
Yes.
Even the hormones, put them more in their feminine energy. They're able to feel more. And so
Mhm.
it is really like you go this way, I'll go this way, and we'll just kind of cross and go those opposite directions.
Absolutely. And it is. I'm so glad you brought up the receiving, because
Mm,
that is such a huge pivot where women are really pushing, pushing, pushing and giving, giving, giving. And in this time, and I have found in myself where I'm pulling back and with your guidance, really pulled back and looked at, what do I need? And how am I going to? It is a recreating of how you are really working and living in this world.
mhm,
And there's a lot more of a shift around my priorities. And it's incredible as we're doing it. And it feels so isolating at the same time because we're not talking about it.
mm. Well, I'm glad you are starting this conversation with the women you're connecting with, and now with our listeners here. So what were some of the things you experienced firsthand? So you're early 40s?
I'm 44, so
Okay.
hit in the middle, right at the lowest point if you follow that U curve.
Yeah.
So my 43 felt like the rock bottom. 44 is shifting, but I was doing a lot of work and a lot of really investigating in all areas what was going on. And I think we don't have to just hit that rock bottom. I think we can mitigate some of this, and just the awareness of what's going on helps us be able to process. Knowing that the strategies I used in my 20s and 30s to just keep pushing, to just ignore what was going on and make it happen, stopped working. And so what worked in 20s and 30s didn't cut it in my 40s. And so I had to refigure it. And it wasn't like midlife crisis, oh my gosh, huge, thing that just pops up. It was a gradual shift. And there are so many excuses I was making along the way of, it's this and this and this and this, instead of really realizing what was happening.
Right. Right. And then once you started realizing it, how did you get your bearings? How did you start to work your way out of that dip?
Yeah. So the first thing, I had a lot of serendipitous moments where I connected with you and have reconnected with you because I've been connecting with you for years now. And that was a huge guidance in giving me, as we did our readings, giving me the, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm on my soul's path. I am supposed to be taking a pause, like stop pushing. And that's the permission that I needed to be able to sit. And because my brain, I'm an occupational therapist by trade. And so my brain is very science based. And so I'm like, well, I've got to figure this out. And if I'm not just like doing work and pushing hard, I still want to dig in to figure out what was happening with me. So I started with happiness because that was my biggest like struggle and thing that felt like was the biggest shift. And so I dove into a lot of happiness research, and there's a like 80-year long study outside of out of Harvard that really looked at people's lives through the generations or through their lifetime and looked at what was the biggest components of happiness. And it was connection. And the connection with others, our relationships, showed that it increased our mental health, our physical health, overall well being. And I was like, well, I can do that. So I reconnected with friends, really focused on making those, because it doesn't have to be lots of people, just a few deep connections. Really focused on my relationship with my husband, really focused on some small, like friendship groups to
Mm,
feel that support.
yeah.
Through that friendship group, I tapped into a naturopathic doctor who helped me with hormones. And so that was like really shifting the physical. So that was like taking away, I didn't have to focus on all these physical symptoms anymore and could really focus on other things. And so it
And I
was,
love that you're talking about the different layers of our being because another thing we're not really taught to do is regularly and as part of our self-awareness, checking in and doing what we can to help balance all those layers of being, our physical, our mental, our emotional, our spiritual, without neglecting any of those. And yeah, when we start reconnecting with our bodies, when we start taking a look at, hey, how is my mind doing? You know, do I need some support there?
yes. Uh-huh.
It really makes a big difference. I love it seems like big picture wise, science and spirituality and medicine, they're all converging, to basically say the same thing, and that seems appropriate for our age of Aquarius, where we're all connecting and becoming sort of this one consciousness, in a way that we're aware of. That's really cool. Um, the other thing I'm noticing is you talking about connections. When we're younger in our teen and early 20 years, it seems like, you have those built-in relationships that, you have just, we're all sort of in this class together. And then everybody fragments off to do their own thing, to go explore the world, to do careers and family and whatever they're doing. And then those kids get older, or those careers get older, and we start having that need again to connect. And then we have to do it in a whole new way.
Absolutely. One of the things I really got curious in myself, and I've seen now in my clients, is we have a lot of situational friendships as adults, where it's I have my friends that are parents of my kiddos, and I have my friends that are also, therapists, and I have my friends that are coaches and entrepreneurs. And as those situations shift, then those friendships often disappear. And it's kind of what you're talking about from when we're kids. But when we're kids, we have longer situations. We're in school from like kindergarten until we graduate when we're seniors, and we can have friendships for years. And some of those deep relationships can continue and carry on. But a lot of our adulthood is like it's the work friends, it's the kid friends, it's, the neighborhood friends. But when those situations change, we lose those friends. And a lot of those are superficial conversations instead of the deeper level support. And
Yeah.
so it was really getting curious about like, I have a lot of social, but I don't have those people, not many of those people that I could really tap into and say, oh my gosh, life is falling apart right now. Like, are you feeling this too? And I lucked out and had a couple of really close friends that honestly, one of them I'd like let go because it was easier to text every once in a while, both moms, both busy. And then throughout this last year, bringing in a conscious effort that we're talking once a week, really connecting. And she's been, my bestie since I was little. So it was nice to have that and bring that back in. And I didn't realize how much I was missing those deeper connections.
And how much we, again, really are not programmed in our particular culture to allow ourselves those connections. I mean, if you think about the way our nation started, we were pioneer homesteaders, like running out and saying, this is my land and I'm going to build here with my, personal family. And it was very kind of individualistic in that way, and we weren't a country that was born on the village really and the sense of the tribe and all of that. And it feels like now, as that sort of young country that we are, only a couple of 100 years old, we're starting to learn that,
Yes.
oh yeah, we really, that tribe philosophy and that culture of yes, people need each other. It's like, yeah, we kind of need that now. We see what the ancients were all about now, it seems like.
And I know I found in myself and a lot of my clients and friends, it's almost like we pride ourselves for being able to do it all on our own.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
definitely had the mentality of, oh my gosh, I'll just do it because I'll do it better and it'll be faster and easier. But
Yeah.
it's really isolating to be in that space. And when you are struggling, you've really eliminated all of these places that you could get support.
Hmm.
You feel uncomfortable. It's almost like, oh my gosh, I'm letting myself down, everybody else down if I ask for help.
Oh, and then yeah, you add to that the feminine, uniquely feminine experience of um, what Cheryl Richardson writes about as the good
Mhm.
girl effect, which is, and Richardson is an old school guru in the importance of self-care, why it's important, tuning into what you need, because she writes that, we are taught to be that good girl who's getting approval because she's not a lot of trouble. She's taking care of things on her own and she's making it look good and she's pleasing to others. And, this is all just bred into
Mhm.
the feminine in a way where eventually, yeah, it starts to crack and it starts to disintegrate. And you start to realize, oh, that's not allowing me to be a whole human or even
Right.
or even a free human. Like it's oppressing me, and I feel like, as you said, the 40s is the time where you start to kind of wake up from that. You start to, and maybe it's because, the childbearing part of our biology starts to kind of wane, and we're like, we sort of wake up from a spell, like, oh, I'm actually a human here. I'm not just a vessel for other humans or, a support system for other humans. I am whole in myself. And that's when you kind of begin that life. I feel like the youngins now, they're sort of getting that from the get-go though. They're kind of getting, thank goodness. They're kind of like, yeah, let's cut to the chase here and go ahead and be whole humans to begin with, which is great. So we're talking about those who are in their 40s now, because by the time uh, this more recent generation gets there, I feel things will be a lot different.
There's a lot of shifts
Yeah.
that kind of our generation have made when we're really, and then we're passing it down because as we heal ourselves, we're also healing our for our kids and shifting those dialogues. And I think a lot of us are talking to our kids in a different way, really having that whole person conversation because we're trying to embody it. and we're trying to step into it. And it's huge as, we're going through that struggle that they won't have to, that they are coming into this whole human viewpoint.
Exactly. Exactly. Hmm. So, what do you feel now is the first when someone is maybe someone's hearing this and they're saying, "Oh, that's what I've been feeling." What do you feel the first few most important steps to tune into yourself and move forward in that positive direction are?
First is tuning in, not pushing it aside, not keeping, trying to push through it, work harder. Is to, oh, I'm getting a message here. And being able to push pause, even briefly, to listen in and tune in.
Mm,
And then it's looking at really what are the biggest things that are coming up for you.
mm,
For me, it was almost reshaping my identity. And there are so many things that I was doing that really didn't light me up. That, the work that I was doing was fun when I started, but it was more a means to an end and not like, this is what I want to do. This is really lighting me up. So when I was going, oh, I really don't want to do this anymore, like that's a key. It's a little clue for us to start tuning in. And then it's looking at, for me, I tuned out a lot of things that I used to like to do to bring me joy. Any hobbies had turned into to-do lists. Even
mm.
yoga, which I loved to do in my 20s as an event, as something that this is, a social thing, and this is a thing to really help me feel better emotionally and physically, now became something I was cramming in at 5 in the morning before the kids got up as a form of exercise. So I lost the joy. It was now just a thing to do. And so it was coming back and really looking at like, what are the things that I like to do? Does this still resonate with me? Baking was a huge part of my life. And then with little kids, it just got too frustrating. It was too messy. It turned off. And now it's like, oh, I really love this. This is something that nurtures me. So it's looking for those pieces that you're missing, that you're really craving, and seeing what we can do to kind of fill in that and allow yourself to have a shift of identity if that's needed.
And I feel letting the enjoyment be justification in itself because,
Yes.
we don't need that guilt voice going, should you really just be doing this? Aren't there a million more productive things you can do? And it's like, no, actually enjoying something, lifting my vibration up is productive. That is. It feels like as we're moving more into the the state you're talking about, two things are important. One being reframing what we call happiness,
Mhm.
how we think of happiness, and the other being allowing our reality, our relationships, our life around us to change and to adjust to reflect our new priorities within ourselves. That takes patience and time too, huh?
It does. It takes patience at time and grace as
Yeah.
you're going through and
And
allow.
compassion. Yeah.
Yeah,
Compassion. Mhm.
absolutely.
Yeah. And allowing other people the chance to catch up, allowing your reality the chance to catch up. The physical reality is our slowest energy. So just giving that a little bit of time and staying in your belief, your confidence that this is the direction I'm moving in. I'm allowing everything else to catch up. But also in looking at happiness, you know, the expectations there not being that I'm just going to be in a constant state of bliss, I'm going to have no problems, but saying, okay, happiness is that balance. It's like the waves. It's going to come in and pull out, and yeah, it doesn't have to be a constant of anything.
No, and true happiness isn't. It isn't this high. And I was definitely one to chase the happiness hits where we're looking at, ooh, a glass of wine makes me feel really good. Doing different activities made me feel good. And those were those happiness hits. And it really is in the happiness research, it's both having those happiness hits, but also this deeper contentment. And the contentment isn't I'm happy all the time. It's that I'm okay with the situation. I'm okay
Mhm.
with where I am. that was really hard for me to come to because I had
Mm,
the comparison game and I was looking at this is where I wanted to be, this is where I see other people, this isn't where I feel like I am right now. And so it was coming to a point where I'm okay with where I am right now. And that's that contentment. We can
yeah.
still want to have something different, but we're okay right now. And that's still a struggle at times. But it is one of the most aha moments for me where it's like, oh, this is just acceptance. This
Yeah.
isn't doing anything big and grand. This is acceptance. And once I've accepted, I feel better about it.
Mhm. And accepting that change will happen again. You know,
Yeah.
this is what brings me the most balanced state of fulfillment right now, but that's going to change. That's
Mhm.
going to shift. You know, it's going to be something else in 5 years. It's going to be, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Ebb and flow.
Yes. I want to say too, a big part of happiness and freedom for women, and especially, I don't even want to put an age on it, but just for women in general, I feel is allowing the people we love and are connected with to have their own free will, have their own paths, have their own feelings, have their own thoughts,
Hmm.
release the need to manage that, to influence that, to, be the fixer of all, negativity, just, or the person who's always in control or whatever it is. And just allowing those other people to be. There's a book I'm really excited to read, Mel Robbins. I love her, and
Me
her,
too.
her new book's coming out pretty soon, and it's called The Let Them Effect. It's like,
Hmm.
let them be, let them make the choices they're making. It's not a reflection on you. It doesn't have to dictate your life. That's literally a novel concept for for a lot of us feminines. It's like, really?
It's a huge concept. It's one I've struggled with as well.
Yeah.
And, I saw a quote and I wish I could remember to give it credit, but it was something along the lines of the role that we play for people is that we get to be like the campfire where each of the people in our lives are going out and they're going on their own journey, but we can't draw them out and we can't tell them the way and we can't go out and clear the path for them. But we get to be the safe space that they get to come back, rest, and warm up before they head out on their journey again. And if I'm a campfire for those that I love and they're a campfire for me, it's giving us that safe space. And I know for my personally with my kiddos, especially my daughter, it was really hard for me because I found myself wanting to go and make it easy for her and clear that path and do things. And I remember one time my daughter did her homework and she refused to turn it in. And I'm like, it's done. Why are you not turning it in? She wasn't going to. And it was that aha moment where I linked it to the saying and I was like, okay, I can't go in and turn her homework in for her. I know it's done. I don't understand why she doesn't want to turn it in, but she's not going to. So she gets to live with the consequences. She gets to have that human experience and I get to be here when she comes back and says, that was hard. And she
Yeah.
gets to rest. And then she gets to go back on her journey, but I can't do it for her. And so much of my life, I was trying to make it easy for people, go out and do it for them in a sense, where instead I get to take this different role and just be that sounding block and be that
Yeah.
person that's going to give you a hug and going to be here for you, but I'm not going to go out and do it for you. And it saves me so much energy.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Being able to listen to and receive the feelings that are going with those decisions or whatever, and not having to change those feelings or just knowing that that's enough to just receive them. Yeah. And the hard part that we're not really talking about, because we're saying, oh, all this makes you happier, and it does. But the hard part, of course, is allowing that part of you that says, but it has to be done this way. It's the only way I've ever seen it done, to literally die.
yes. And
That's
it's
hard.
It's really hard. This isn't an easy process. I mean, like I'm in the 40s. 40s are hard for me. And for my clients and my friends, as I'm really bringing this up, it's a hard space to be because you are letting go or letting die the parts of you that have gotten you here, but they're not functional anymore. They're not supporting you in the same way anymore. And so we are letting go of pieces of us. We're also cutting ties with things that we thought we were going to do as
Yeah,
our priorities shift, as our internal identity is shifting. And
yeah.
really looking at, oh, but I thought I was going to be that, but I'm no longer craving that. And I have to let that go so that I can open the doors and see what else is coming for me.
Yeah, and knowing that just like you might mourn someone, an old relationship or a friend from way back, or it's okay to mourn that you. It's
Yeah.
okay, to look back on the you of before and say, oh, I missed that one, and it's okay. But it really, I mean, people talk about ego death like it's just no big deal, but it is
Yeah.
letting part of
Yeah.
you die away because that part of you's time is over.
Yeah.
And honoring it, but then allowing this new version of you to be birthed
Yes.
and then just allowing the people you love, especially children, to see that because that gives them permission to reinvent themselves. That gives them permission to not have to stay the same or adhere to those expectations. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's a struggle. And, once you, or at least for me, identifying some of the whys I'm feeling this way and I'm struggling this way, then it was almost giving me permission to be like, oh, okay, this is okay. This is what I needed to hear was, oh, this is normal. This is happening across the board. This is not just me, being depressed or feeling crazy or whatever was coming up. This is a normal progression. And where we talk about puberty as a normal progression, and we know like there's going to be the hormonal shifts and we're going to have the physical shifts and things like that. This is also happening, but we're not just talking night sweats and, hot flashes. And that's really what gets, the big bill. And then the midlife crisis, where, people are doing huge career changes and buying new cars or moving or getting divorced, things like that that are huge. It doesn't have to be huge. It wasn't for me. It was a gradual shift, but then understanding of what's going on in so many different facets, it's like, it makes sense. Now
Mhm.
I have some information that I can work with versus just going in blind and feeling the struggle and trying to keep pushing the way that I was.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. So what step would you recommend someone to take who's listening to this, saying, that's definitely me and I'm ready to take some action? What's their first step?
Um, First step, we've listened. We've, gotten ready and been there, found what, those biggest struggles are. Because if you take everything at once, so I guess coming in next, what is the number one thing that is bugging you the most? So if we look at everything, it gets overwhelming. But if we chunk things, we're able to go, okay, I can focus on this. I can focus on this. I can focus on this. And so, if it is perimenopause and there's a variety of symptoms coming in, getting the support you need with a trusted provider. And there are a lot of different things that are coming out around perimenopause. And there are some very old strategies that are still being prescribed, like birth control, that just don't work, that will actually tank you more. And so you want to look at somebody that's really looking at those hormones that are going on individually in your body to see what's the best next step for you. So if that happens to be the biggest struggle, finding a provider that can really support. And one of the things I'm doing with my clients is connecting people, because I found as I was talking to my friends, I would say, well, you got to go talk to your provider. And they'd get information like, well, they said I need a better sleep hygiene. It's like, well, I don't think so. I think there's something more than just like, we know you can't sleep, but why can't you sleep? Getting in and investigating more. And then if it's that happiness where you're really feeling dissatisfied with your life, and that feels like the biggest thing, getting support around that in, is it you're having an identity shift? Is it you really don't know how to have fun anymore? You've lost touch with that. And getting support in finding what are those key things. So I think one is really tuning in. Two is really seeing what is the biggest thing here that I want to tackle. And it can have that domino effect. After you start adding in the different things, the next one gets easier and the next one gets easier. And I think maybe even before that is finding community, because
Mhm.
that's going to be that support that's coming in through. That was my first step, is that, ooh, find community. Let's start talking about this. Let's find connections. So maybe
Yeah.
as I backtrack, that is actually the first step.
Yeah. And the thing I know in working from a spiritual aspect is any action you take that's in alignment with, improving your reality, that's in alignment with becoming more aware, that's in alignment with your healing, is going to lead to another step that will benefit you. So, let's say you are like, I'll take this action, and you go to a practitioner that you feel like, oh, well, that wasn't the solution. You'll be shown the next. Your job is just to take that action and trust that you're being led and your path is opening up. And keep your eyes open to the ways that it's coming in.
I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
huge. You are a huge person with me in helping me come back to that spiritual. Okay, so let's give patience. Let's keep going on to the next step. Let's without the push, because my
Yeah.
personality is like push, push, push. And so it's really pulling back and being able to sit with it and sit
Yeah.
with discomfort and then get curious about what's coming. And just like you said, one action will guide you. And so that's where I followed a lot of is, okay, I'm taking an action. I'm
Right.
trusting India here, but it
Yeah.
would. And then the next thing, it's like that serendipity comes through, but
Yes.
spirit guiding you, and here's your next connection, and here's your next connection. It's like when I connected in with my friends in a deeper level, somebody had said, oh my gosh, I just saw this provider. She was phenomenal. Up, next step.
Yeah. Yeah. And now that's led to this whole new passion for you, which is
Yeah.
exciting.
Which is really fun. And
Yeah.
it is. And it's a way I've worked with women for years as a pelvic occupational therapist and somatic trauma experiencing therapist. And so it's really a way that I'm just supporting in a different, with a different population than I've typically worked with. I've worked with that younger mom. And so it's that step up for me, which has felt really good and aligned with where I am in my life as
I was
well.
going to say it reflects where we're at. Well, that is beautiful. And I know that some people listening will want to connect with you and learn more about their individual journeys. So how would you recommend they do that? How do you prefer that they
You
do?
can find me at landypeek.com, LandyPeee, like peekaboo.com. Also Instagram and Facebook, Landy Peek. So pretty easy to find me. But I'd love to be able to connect with people because just starting the conversation is huge. Feeling like you're not alone. I also have a podcast that's the Landy Peek podcast that you can find Spotify, Apple, wherever you want to listen to your podcast, where I talk about my journey and I talk about happiness in the research I found and perimenopause. And I'm starting a very new series that's me in the middle, talking with women all around this space of being in the middle of having kids, aging parents, changing bodies, changing brains. Spiritually, we're shifting. And so it's a really fun series that's coming out in January, where we're talking and just having stories and opening up those conversations.
Yeah, I love it. And just allowing that space for these feelings and these shifts that have been taboo in the past and have been kind of, you deal with that on your own. And now we have all kinds of freedom and space to connect. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Landy. This has been really exciting to talk about. And I'm so, so honored that you shared it with all of us, and we'll connect again soon.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.